Hello there guys and welcome back to the channel. Right, so Morbius's deep dive is out and I actually really liked it. Now, his SIG ability is going to be important but for very specific things. And I like the fact that 7-star will also definitely be usable, and there are quite a few abilities that I love about Morbius. Right. So let's break it down, how he's going to function, what are going to be his, main characteristics, and what I like most about him, what I'm perhaps somewhat worried about, his defensive prowess, and where he could potentially get used. So his base principle will be around this gliding mechanic, where basically when you dash in from a distance, you're going to be able to miss throughout anything, thus gaining easy intercepts. Your glide will also activate on opponent's special attacks if you don't have a fervor buff active, and that means that you will be able to use that ability to phase through tricky to evade index specials, and then do quite an interesting bit of shenanigans. Now, he does have access to a lot of bleeds, but these bleeds are kind of like sunspots incinerates, where that's not where your damage is coming from. In fact, these bleeds are probably going to be even worse. What I do like about Morbius the most is that he will have a ton of heal and power reversal with Petrify and with his unique abilities. So he will have some massive crits as well. So Psionic Glide is the name of his main mechanic. So perform a dash forward from outside of striking distance or during the opponent's special attack, causing all incoming attacks to passively miss Morbius until completing his first medium attack. Psionic Glide's medium attack is possibly all unblockable, which is also going to be tricky on defense, because if you forget about it or mistime it, it's going to be kind of like with Titania, where you're going to miss and he's going to smack you, and he gains a massive attack rating increase as well. And his attacks inflict bleeds. He has 20% chance on every attack to inflict bleed, but he will have his fervor buff that, by the looks of it, increased it to 100%. And when you're gliding with your Psionic Glide, it is also a guaranteed bleed, I believe. Once you get to 10 bleeds, you are going to get to a Petrify, which is going to be, again, quite important for a science champion to further, mitigate opponent's power gains and their region reversal. He doesn't benefit from Despair Mastery in a regular fashion, though. He has an upgraded version of it, which I absolutely love about the guy as well. I am so giddy because I genuinely look forward to getting a 7-star. I'm thinking of whether I should grind for a 6-star as well. I kind of doubt it. Maybe. We'll see. That said, there is a lot to like about him. So here's the attack increase. We can see that, with your medium glide, you're guaranteed to inflict that bleed. The bleed damage is pathetic, but they do last 24 seconds, which is quite a bit of time. And also, if opponent's recovering from special attack, you can inflict 4 bleeds instead. And further, after performing Psionic Glide, you get 100% fervor buff for 10 seconds, which means that you can glide every 10 seconds unless your buff gets nullified or you're neutralized. He's actually going to be very cheesy against neutralized matchups as well. And if your fervor buff gets nullified, then you get a passive version, but that passive version will not prevent you from gliding. Right. Fervor buff in general just increased the ability accuracy of damaging effects, and that is that. So here we can see that it's nullified, it's going passive, and then you can glide all the time. Right. His bleeds also automatically reduce opponent's regeneration rate and also their power gain. I believe it was 10% regen rate reversal and 5% of their power gain. But Despair Mastery adds 5% for each level on top of it, so you're going to be reversing a lot of heal, and then you're going to get Petrify, and then you're going to be mitigating opponent's power gain, which means you're going to be, switching off opponent's MDs and effects like that, and that definitely will help in Mystic matchups. So here we go. 20% chance on each hit to inflict that bleed. Each damaging debuff on the opponent lowers regen by 10% and ability power rate by 5. Up to 10 of these, so that alone is going to put you at 100%, completely shutting off regen and 50% ability power rate. Morbius does not benefit from Despair Mastery. Instead, while the opponent is suffering from a damaging debuff, lower their regeneration and ability power rate by 5% for each rank invested. This ability does not stack, so you're going to get 15% additional there. So you're going to be reducing it opponent's power gain, I believe, by 65% from this, and 115%, by having your bleeds active in itself. And when you have 10 or more bleeds active, you're going to inflict Petrify debuff on for 10 seconds, but that Petrify will be paused whilst opponent has 10 or more bleeds active. So that will put you at something around 140% regen reversal, and I believe that adds up to 50, 75, 80, 90% opponent's power gain reversal. So you're basically switching off MD and effects alike. So it is a bit of a shame that this does not stack, but then it would be completely OP and he would be like an insane regen reversal champion. Right. Here we can see that Petrify is getting paused, and obviously Petrify in itself has some cool effects like switching off Dr. Doom, so on and so forth. And yeah, so here are his bleeds. He also gains increased combat power rate for each damaging debuff on opponent up to 30%, so it means you're going to be spamming more special attacks, which is, again, quite advantageous and a cool ability to have. I always like when champions have extra access to special attacks, and this is purely offensive ability because on defense, opponents won't really have these debuffs on active unless you're getting hit anyways, and in which case you have bigger problems than that. Now, his special attacks, his level 1 effectively is there to inflict more bleed debuffs on opponent and also finish your fervor buff as soon as your special attack expires, so you can glide again. So your level 1 is kind of your ramp up special, which you will likely have to use 1 or 2 in regular matchups, because again, you're going to be enabling your gliding quicker. You're going to be placing these bleeds on opponent, especially if you dash in when opponent is, throwing their special 1, because you're going to be gaining like 4 bleeds from that automatically, and that's going to help you quite a bit there. And his level 2 is the big damage special. So personal damaging debuffs are paused during this attack. If the opponent is petrified, the second hit becomes guaranteed critical hit, so he has guaranteed source of damage there, consuming all damaging debuffs on the opponent and increasing attack rating by quite a lot. For each debuff consumed, max 40. So you can see some massive numbers there. And also passively regenerate 15% of the damage dealt, up to 10% of your max health, which means he does have regen. He can recover recoil like that, and he will also be really recoil-friendly champion if he's awakened. Unawakened, I don't think he's going to be too recoil-friendly. He doesn't have any other immunities to kind of speak of. You could kind of call it a pseudo-immunity in his SIG ability. I'm going to explain that a bit later, but he does have regional level 2. Poison will reduce that to 7% of your max health, which will still be enough to recover your recoil damage. So that's quite decent. And your level 3 is basically the same as level 2, except it doesn't consume your bleeds. So you do not need to lose your ramp up if you choose to go that route, and you can, again, regen up to 10% of your max health. His awakened ability, basically, first part of it is the same as Guillotine, where ending on your SIG level, if opponent is bleed immune, you can start applying Ruptures. At max SIG, it's 100%. At lower SIGs, it's going to be significantly lower, and which would ultimately give him a lot more matchups that he works on. I kind of like the fact that his SIG ability is designed this way, because you can definitely still use him unawakened. It's just that don't bring him in bleed immune matchups. But given that he's a science champion and he will largely be dealing with like mystics, and there aren't too many bleed immune mystics, you can't do Mangog, for instance, or Dragon Man, but Sasquatch and most of the other big mystics like Rintra, like Mojo, for instance, you can still do. So I do like his SIG ability. I do think it's useful. I'm kind of more jealous from the unduped sensor perspective on the second and third parts of his SIG ability. So when taking direct damage from any source, gain a non-stacking undying passive that falls off after not taking direct damage for 2 seconds. Cooldown is 8 seconds. And this Undying passive is basically immortality from dots that are a direct damage. And here is the tricky part that a lot of people will have kind of like confusion about. I can guarantee you, I can already hear questions about it. This will work on poison, on bleed, on degen, on some other, forms of damaging effects. This will not work on cold snap, shock, incinerate. Those are energy damage. It will not work on rupture. That is physical damage. You need to know that different types of damage over time effects have different damage classifications. Some of them are direct damage, like bleed and poison. Some of them are energy, cold snap, incinerate, shock. Now we have physical, which is rupture. I do believe we have a couple more new ones that are relatively niche. Also, while Undying is active, instantly regenerate 50% of all direct damage taken against skilled champion. This is reduced by half. This is what will take him to the next level, though. This ability, might sound a bit confusing, but this ability makes him insanely recoil friendly because he still benefits from willpower mastery, and then any damage that you take from poison or bleed, you just recover half of it. So it means that, effectively bleed and poison from double-edged liquid courage is half as potent, and that means you're going to be just, regening it. So 6-star, let's say Sig 200 Morbius is going to be insanely recoil friendly because not only you will be healing the entire fight from the poison and even at the beginning from the bleed, you will also have a very good option to just regen back the recoil damage on your level 2s. So I like that a lot because Science class as a whole is not particularly recoil friendly. And this definitely will make him much more attractive as a champion. The problem of that is obviously that all of this package put together does mean that Awakened ability is quite important. Like, don't get me wrong, you're going to be able to do a lot with an unawakened 7-star. But Max Sig 6-star is going to be able to do a lot more. And there will be quite, going up against robot champions or other bleed immunes can be quite important. And if you're running recalls, then definitely, 6-star. Which is the reason why I'm kind of thinking, it's like, do I go for a 7-star? I mean, we are getting a 7-star if you had that triple double track thing. Or, do I also grant for a 6-star? This is definitely a dilemma for me, because I do like running recall masteries quite a lot across the contest. And also, just having more matchups that he can do, opening up that Man-Thing matchup, opening up that Mangog matchup, being better against some other random matchups is quite important for Battlegrounds. Just, ability to take as many different fights as possible. So it's going to be quite interesting to see exactly, how 7-star compares with the 6-star Morbius. Overall, though, I am genuinely quite excited and hopeful for Morbius. Guaranteed crits, which means guaranteed source of damage, which is reliable, which is what you want. There is, in my opinion, solid amount of utility in his glide mechanic, in his access to a ton of debuffs, that's completely shutting down opponents' regen, that's completely or almost completely shutting down opponents' power gain. That's quite a lot. Not a ton. Again, there's, no immunities to speak of directly. And Awakened ability, does give him kind of like that extra bit of utility. But we'll see what happens with the 7-stars. And here we are. We can see some definite good numbers here coming from Morbius. It is, quite reassuring to see him deal with Werewolf by Night as a new champion with Rintress and a bunch of others. So overall, very much so look forward to getting my hands on the 7-star. Let me know what you guys think, but I'm quite pumped personally. We'll see. And okay, last thing, I need to be, completely honest here. Science class is my favorite class, and science champions in general just kind of speak to me more. And the reason why I'm as excited as I am, because I do think that there is solid bit of utility as well as a guaranteed source of damage, and Science class doesn't have too many kind of like bursty champions for shorter fights, and he does look quite solid, like, you know, relatively fast. Obviously, this is still very early on. We need to get our hands on the champion, test him, test his damage output, test the most important matchups, as I always do. I do have the spreadsheet that I plan on continuing, where, you know, I'm gonna check out whether he can do kind of like the more important matchups in Battlegrounds and how many of them, like Killmonger's, Korg's, you know, Sassy's, Chow's, Rintress. You'd kind of expect him to do almost all the Mystics, especially Awakened, and, you know, you'd hope he does plenty of champs in other classes as well. And that is ultimately what largely is going to decide how well or poorly he's going to do. But all of that stuff takes time and testing, so do not jump to conclusions. But I'm quite happy with what I have seen so far. And yeah, I'm gonna catch you guys soon. Bye bye. Hello there, guys, and welcome back to the channel. So we have all the information about